8.3 FM, Chicago's #1 African music station.
I am Mazi KK Odeluga.
Mazi Ejikeme Obasi.
Na Mazi Oke Okachuku.
This is Straight Talk Radio, the world as we see.
Coming to you from WGHC 98.3 FM. Your voice, your music, your station.
Listen to us this and every Saturday and this and every Tuesday at 9 to 10 p.m. U.S. Central.
Sultano, Ratano, President,
Ndewono, ndị ọma Igbo, anyị ekene unu ebe ọbụla unu bi, ebe ọbụla unu si nọlụ, ndụ mmiri, ndụ azụ, mma mmanụ. This is Straight Talk Radio, the world as we see it. We're coming to you again from WGHC 98.3 FM, your voice, your music, your station. This program is a news and public affairs program that's focused on issues affecting Africans, Nigerians, Ndi Igbo, both in their homeland and also in the diaspora. So we have structured this program, which is sponsored by the Igbo American Heritage Foundation, to be built on the Igbo philosophy of Eziokwu Bondo. We will try as much as we can to be honest, truthful, and frank in reporting every news, telling every story, and discussing every issue. And so we know that for Ndi Igbo, truth is life. Eziokwu Bondo. With me in the studio today is Mazi Ejike Obasi.
Ndiba Ndewono.
And also Mazi Okechukwu.
Ndiba Edalono.
Yes, you can listen to us on your radio dial 98.3 FM if you're within our listening area, or through our app, the WGHC app 98.3. You can download that from your Apple Store or Play Store, and then tune in on Play Store. And also you can also dial, if you're outside of the Chicago listening area, you can also call this number 563-999-3211. And of course, we are live on Facebook at the WGHC website, Facebook page, or also you can go to Straight Talk to You Facebook page, and then you can listen to us live. We need your comments. We will ask you to send your questions, and then at some point during the program, we will take questions from our listening audience. And so let your friends know, tag your friends, let them get involved in this insightful conversation that we're going to have today. So, Mazi, okay?
Yes, sir.
We have had some comments from listeners, and can you share some of those, and so that the panel can respond to some of the questions?
We have a few comments, and some of them we've started addressing already, but we'll mention them and maybe we'll have some new insights. I'll start with the first one that was submitted by my good friend Yomi Sijuade, and he actually wrote it in Igbo with all the right dialectic marks. So he said,
Kudos.
Kedi hebo agenda maka 2018 for diasporas. So I guess he was asking what is a agenda, or he was suggesting that there should be an agenda for 2018 for diasporas, and I'm guessing diasporas, Nigerians, or even Igbos.
Okay, Mazi Obasi, do you have any comment? And I mean,
well, I think Nuchem, the agenda for all Nigerians, not just in Ndi Igbo, all Nigerians in the diaspora should be to begin to organize. We need to begin to organize. Maka Igwebike. It is very important that all of us learn to come together to put unified pressure to achieve success. We are way too divided. We are too scattered. And I think before we can begin to seriously articulate movement in any direction, the beginning is organization and coming together.
Okay, so are you talking about organizing politically within the Nigerian political space to participate in the electoral process? Or, I mean, midterm elections in the United States, for example, is in 2018. So shouldn't we be organizing in the U.S.?
Okay, do you want to take that?
I think organizing means start where you are. So organize in every aspect. Whether it's coming together just for social events, that's a good start. But then you got to build on it. Coming together for economic empowerment. And actually, I think the theme should be coming together to build a community. And a community does much more than one thing. It could be you could be doing political stuff as well as social, as well as building your community around your children and making sure that they don't lose their roots.
Okay, so you actually are trying to look at this from the broader perspective
Yes.
of the African diaspora, the Igbo diaspora, because what we have, frankly, is in essence a bunch of organizations,
Yes.
and we've not been
Independent.
able to build effective communities. But the opportunity is there,
Plenty.
and maka na asị na ebe onye bi ka ọ na-awachi, you know, I'm beginning to get tired, really, of wherever we gather, people are talking about politics in Nigeria. Meanwhile, the low hanging fruit is where you live.
Your alderman, you don't know.
Your alderman, your mayor in your village, you don't know. The trustees, you don't know. You don't participate in the school board that make decision with your regarding how to
affects you
spend
right where you
how
live.
you spend your tax dollars and the quality of schools that your children go to, whether you have your snow plowed. And so I think the key thing, if somebody who should ask me what is the agenda for the Igbo, is like you said,
They're connected to the community.
let's build a community that could be with which we can respond to the needs within wherever we are, because engaging the political process, school board,
Very important.
being advocates, and also if at the end of it all you take some of those lessons learned to help people in Nigeria organize, because we don't vote in Nigeria. And so why spend all your time trying to be political about Nigeria in America when you really won't be able to cast a vote?
You can't give what you don't have.
That's right.
If you are organizing in Nigeria but you actually haven't secured where you are,
Oh,
Yes, yes. If I may comment here, I think the other perspective one has to look at is we often complain about a lot of opportunities missed,
yes.
and not being part of the system, quote unquote. But for those of us who have lived in Chicago for quite a while, I remember when the Lawrence and Broadway small area around there used to be a very strong Nigerian business congregation. Yes, we had little businesses, we had shops, we had Equator Club, for those of us who remember that time, was all here. At that time, most of the near North Chicago was very run down. Since then, there has been a lot of gentrification. We are not part of it.
Yes.
Perhaps if we were organized and had learned to take advantage of opportunities that were open to us, we might be reaping the fruit of those benefits today.
Yeah. Okay.
Of course, tabubo mande suru beke.
That's the
It
point.
is never
That's the point.
late.
That's
Yes.
right. Tata mgbe onye ji teta bụ ụtụtụ ya. And so that's ka ebido n'ụtụtụ chụba anya bụ ewu ojii, ọkwa n'ife anyị na-ekwu.
Yeah, that
Na
you-
ebido n'ụtụtụ chụba ewu ojii afọ. I mean, maka na anyị agbago arọ. Yeah, we've come of age in the American diaspora, for example, and those in the UK, in Trinidad, in Tobago, in Bahamas, in China, in Japan, in Taiwan, you know, everywhere we are, South Africa, East Africa, North Africa, this is opportunity to engage the political process. Any more comments before we move on to the next?
I would like to do 2 more if we have time. But the one is, this one will probably provoke a lot of discussion, but maybe we want to keep it brief. Mazi Emeka Edison was saying that we, by saying you, we need to accept what Trump said. It is not a mistake made by him, but a naked truth about the dilapidated state of Africa. Who wants to go first?
No, I mean, you see, the American Constitution guarantees free speech. But within the context of that conversation, he is trying to base a policy on skin color and his perception of those people, not based on facts or issues of law, or based on our own, what would I call, our values as Americans. Because the American Constitution does not allow for discrimination for migration based on ethnicity or religion or gender or orientation. So the point is that he was not treating Africans or Caribbeans equal under the law.
Yes.
And he is the president.
And he's the
America.
president of all of us.
Yes.
He's the president of all of us. So that's important. So yes, beyond everything else, he could have. I know he may have. Part of there's a measure of truth in what he said. After all, if our leaders have used the resources that God gave their nations for the benefit of the people, then there will not be a lot of us queuing to get visas to America.
So I agree with what you said first, which is context, right?
Yes.
We have to contextualize what's going on.
Yes.
Now, to see the second point and say there's a measure of truth is actually taken away from the first. There is no measure of truth in what he said, given the context in which he said it.
You're right.
If we were having a different conversation, if we were having a conversation in a bar about what countries are like, and that came up, then there's a measure of truth in what he said. But given the context of where he said, not really. Because even in the USA, we're not too far from the south side. We're on the north side, but move a little bit down to the south side, and you will see people who are in dire need of things that we take for granted in Africa, peace.
Yes.
So there are a little bit of bad places in different parts of the world. Somebody living in Ikoyi, Lagos, or in Ikeja sees life very, very different than somebody who's living in Oshodi.
That's right.
Absolutely.
And even in the rural areas. Mm-hmm. So there are parts of the country, Nigeria, and parts of different other countries in Africa that are not as great as they could be. And
yes.
I see these as temporary problems that could be solved if we put our minds together. So context is everything, and within the context, I totally disagree with everything he said.
My own issue is that I am still trying to define exactly what he meant by shithole countries. Because if you are talking about the governments, so how the countries are run, okay, we can look at it in that context. I can show you examples of East European countries that have as bad a government as you have in Africa.
Yes.
So the bad governance is not the exclusive preserve of African countries. If you are talking of poverty, let's talk about poverty. A lot of Asia, even India, there is a lot of poverty in India.
Yes.
So does that put India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, are they also shithole countries?
Well, if you look at the color, he may put them in.
In fact, if you drive a few miles out of Chicago, go to Ohio.
That's right.
Rural Ohio.
And
parts of rural Ohio are worse than you will not see things
where you have rural Americans living under conditions
in squalor.
Of course, we don't discuss Native Americans, because their condition is even worse than some
Well,
places in Africa.
So there you go. So therein lies the issue. What exactly do you mean?
Yes.
Because at the end of it all, if you really think about it dispassionately, it comes to one simple factor. Donald Trump is a racist, pure and simple. And unfortunately, not only is he racist, he is also ignorant. And that is where everything has to start.
Yes.
That's my opinion.
Now, ignorance. Do you think that there's not a certain percentage of our fellow citizens here in the U.S. who also need to be informed? Because I was amazed when I looked at the quality of Africans that come to the U.S. In terms of characterization, you find out that they are more educated, they are more likely to finish high school, and they are more likely to be professionals, some of them with higher degrees, PhDs or MDs, and who are doing great and wonderful things within the U.S. Now, if we can segue a little bit into the immigration debate.
Yes.
By the way, you're listening to Straight Talk Radio, coming to you from WGHC 98.3 FM, your voice, your music, your station. So we are talking about immigration. Why is this push to ban so-called chain migration?
So what is chain migration? Chain migration, to a lot of us, is what we know as visa lottery.
Yes.
Because that's the
No,
one.
visa lottery-
Actually, sorry, chain migration is the one where you actually
Family.
invite your family
Yes.
Yes.
to join you after you have gotten your citizenship.
Yes.
Mostly because even with you can't do it with just the residency card.
Yes.
Yes.
And so chain migration is actually not a problem, because if I come to the U.S. and I start doing very well, or even if I'm not doing very well, but I get myself situated, and I apply to get my parents to join me,
Yes.
something that is not shown on the paperwork is, even before they join me, a lot of that money that I'm making here, I actually traveling overseas, and I'm paying 30% to one of the money exchangers.
MoneyGram or Western Union.
Yes, and you guys need to sponsor us because we paid you a whole lot. But that's where my money is going, back there. But if they join me here, then I am more fully here. Now I contribute more to the economy.
Absolutely.
I may actually even get a better job, or if they get a job, or even create a job,
That's right.
create employment, we are adding to the economy here. Instead of sending the hard-earned money from here to over there and be spent over there,
to take care of them.
I am spending it all over here because
On
the
them.
people I'm taking care of are with me. So the taxes
Contributing
and
to the American economy.
yes,
Yes.
Beyond that is, I think, one of the social significance of the presence of grandparents in the life of young second-generation Americans is priceless. It's
definitely.
priceless. And so if somebody says, I don't want you to bring your parents, and so that your parents will bring your siblings, or maybe you bring your siblings, it's because now what on you kusoya osisi ofu osisi ade emofia mara onye kwulu ife akwude bia. Those are concepts, the Igbo concepts that demand that we need to have our own families here. And of course, that has been the tradition, and that's been a strong American value. So why is this new drive to stop what has historically been
Populism.
American value? This is what America is all about. A land of immigrants that had catered to so many other people. What is driving this?
And I would say this is immigration through the right way. This is legal immigration. If we're talking about people who are jumping fences or coming through other means and being here illegally, then I'll have some. If you're stopping people from coming legally, then what you're doing is increasing the odds that they're going to come illegally.
Yes.
And now you're going to spend more resources trying to
Keeping
keep them
them
out,
away.
and you may have to deport them 20 times. How much money are you paying to do that versus
Yes.
allow them to do it legally and through the process that it's set up already? If you close all avenues, you give the people who actually still need to leave anyway no options. And actually, you make the good people bad, because now they will find other ways of doing things that they could have done legally.
I really don't have anything to say.
One of the
yes.
issues that I want to bring up is the issue of African migration. Because if you look at the American population, of all the peoples that have come here, the African is the only one who has not taken full benefit of the so-called chain migration. Because for the African American, they have not brought anybody out of Africa because of the way they came. There was a disconnect for the African American from the 400 years that our presence has been on this continent, from the very founding of America. There are very few African Americans you could say have used the chain migration. So why all of a sudden their brethren, the Africans, are coming? Now is going to be a problem, because don't you see there's a measure of injustice?
It is xenophobia, blind populism, nationalism.
Yes.
Things are changing, and some people who are not comfortable with change are finding it difficult because the colors are mixing, which is wonderful. It's a kaleidoscope of beauty if we let the diversity continue.
Of course, in this, I would like to point out that America historically has made exemptions when they see it politically expedient.
Yes.
If you take the case of Cuba,
Yes.
when America felt that it was important to undermine the government of Fidel Castro in Cuba and to bring down the communist regime there, it was okay to pass a law that any Cuban that set foot on American soil was automatically granted residency. I'm wondering if it is not time that the African Americans begin to demand that a special case be made for African migration,
That's right.
on the grounds that every other ethnic group has taken advantage of all the immigration laws to increase their population, except the African American.
That's right.
So, do you think this is something that we should be looking into as carrying as a campaign?
And that is part of the yes, I agree with you. Because whenever immigration is being discussed within the American political space, there's always this issue that comes up. For the African American, the story that the media would like to sell to our brothers is that these are the people who are coming to take your jobs. And so migration and immigration is seen as adversarial.
A zero-sum game.
Yes, to a certain group of people.
Yes.
Not knowing that really what they're trying to do is to stop your brethren from coming to, one, strengthen the community, and also
Well, I think if you look
because
at
many
it,
of the Africans that are coming are actually serving in predominantly
African
American communities.
Yes.
And so issue of immigration should be seen as one of the ways that we must continue to encourage, so as to have a voice and a say.
It's been borne out by study after study.
That's
the
right.
immigrants that are coming are the ones that actually create the mom and pop shop jobs,
Yes.
and even the big tech jobs.
Yes.
So think about all the big tech firms that actually are standing today,
Yes.
and look at not just the executives but the founding,
Founders, yes.
and see how that happened. Either they are second generation, which means their parents immigrated, or they themselves are first generation. I mean, they are immigrants themselves. So that immigration takes away jobs is a fallacy that has not been borne out by any facts.
I think these are things that are put out there to blind communities to the truth. If you really want to look at data, which I think makes the most sense, if you look at the last few election cycles in this country, you recognize that America has been broken down into voting blocks. So you talk about white men, you talk about white women, you talk about African American. Well, you are all lumped into one group, African Americans, male and female.
right.
Then you talk about Hispanic. Okay, the African American voter bloc is in decline
Yes.
because it is very difficult for you to continue to grow in terms of a percentage of the U.S. population when other blocks are able to increase their numbers by massive immigration. Why did we not have all this problem when a lot of Eastern Europeans were immigrating in very large numbers into America? Did anybody have a problem with immigration? So it is the Hispanics that suddenly start coming in that creates panic among the American public about all of a sudden you see pictures of hordes of Hispanics jumping across the border to come and swell the population. Africans are not even part of that conversation.
That's right.
Because African immigration to the United States has been a trickle.
Yes.
It has been very, very low.
Yes.
So, in fact, the diversity visa lottery program
Yes.
is the one program that increased African immigration to the
Level that it is.
Yes.
That's right.
Wait, so recently it has. It's
Yes.
been predominantly actually the
Oh,
Eastern
well,
European
absolutely.
bloc until recently. And even Nigeria has been taken off the list for the last 4 cycles.
Because you've reached your
Because
quota.
we've reached our quota. But
Absolutely.
the other Eastern European blocs who have
Haven't.
been coming forever
Have not.
haven't. If you look at the history and the numbers of who has benefited and used the diversity lottery, Africans are nowhere near, although the current numbers show that Africa has increased and actually
Relatively.
And that
relatively.
is why all of a sudden it is important
It's a
to
bad
kill
thing.
it.
It's a terrible
And that's
thing.
the point I am making, that it is time African and African Americans, because whether you like it or not, you are all in the same pot.
Yes.
Whether you came by the May
Whether
ferry
you
or
you
pulled by a
either
canoe,
which way you are
in the
of
same boat now.
Negroid
Ancestry.
ancestry,
That's
you
right.
are all in the same pot.
Yes.
And when you have discussions that tend to drive a wedge between the two groups, it ends up hurting both groups.
Yes.
The reality is immigration is what will increase the number of African/African Americans in the United States. If you get to a critical mass, you become politically more important,
Yes.
and your voices become heard better.
That's right.
And therefore, I truly believe that this immigration fight should actually be, at the van of this fight should be our African American brothers and sisters,
Yes.
who have been here much longer than we have, who understand the politics of this country. They should be the ones making sure that African immigration should increase,
Yes.
even as the rest of the population groups are held back.
Mana ịma na asị na onye a na-eduga n'ama na-ebu ụzọ. And that goes back to the first issue that we started with, conversation around what we need to do to organize. So when Black Lives Matter rally, we should be there.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
And so there's a rally that is being put together by a coalition, the Immigration Coalition in Chicago, on Wednesday at the Daily Plaza between, I think it's 5 to 7.
Is
5
that
p.m.
next week, Wednesday, or
No,
tomorrow?
Tomorrow.
Wednesday, the
Rally
17th?
rally to defend immigrants. So
Okay.
part of the this campaign is to organize against the temporary protected status for our brethren from Honduras, from Haiti, and then all the other people that the Trump administration have removed their temporary protection. I mean, what is sad about the Haiti situation is that historically, Haiti has had a deep connection
with the United States.
With the United States.
Absolutely.
But has not gained the kind of respect that they need.
For those who don't know, Haiti helped U.S. fight in the Revolutionary War.
No, but again,
Chicago was founded by a Haitian.
that's right.
I mean, how much deeper do you want this to go?
So Chicago must
Helped with
come
the
out.
purchase, with the Louisiana purchase.
With the Louisiana Purchase.
That's right.
Full of
So,
Louisiana,
but again, I think what is held against Haiti is the idea that they dared to free themselves from the clutches of French slaveholders.
Absolutely.
And so for the U.S., it was one of those success stories that must, by people of African descent, that must not be told, lest the African in the South
Get a good idea.
be boosted by that kind of event to be able to seek a revolt against slavery in the South,
And-
which is sad though, because much as we stood for liberty, much as we stood for justice, and we believe that all men are created equal, but that our involvement in slavery and the way we ran slavery as a nation is still a thing of shame.
And beyond slavery, think about the civil rights. I'm sure we're going to get to
That's
that
right,
very soon.
yes.
So we-
even beyond slavery, when we said, all right, Emancipation Proclamation, you all are free, we still found a way to put other things in place, Jim Crow and a lot of other
Yes,
things that actually stopped the
complicate-
forward movement.
that's right. So again, Chicago come out, Igbo community come out, Yoruba community come out, all
Nigerian
Ghanaian,
community.
Nigerian
Yes.
community, Sierra Leoneans, Liberians, all Africans should be at Daily Plaza tomorrow between 5 to 7 p.m. Come, let's show force. Chicago has been a blessing to this nation and has been a blessing. It was one of the abolition cities where people came to, or it was part of the Underground Railroad. And so Chicago has always been a progressive city, and we want to keep it a progressive city. We want our voices to be heard all across the country, that we are standing with our brethren in Honduras, and we are standing with our brethren from Haiti, and all the other people that are facing the DACA, or the children who are also the dreamers. We're standing with them, because we have room in the larger American family
A
for
good
all
thing
these
is a
people.
good thing.
I mean, it's nwata ka emeli ibie.
Oh, be
Oh, yeah,
man.
Yes.
Onye enu na-asị ka ọ dị sọ ya mma, ọ ga-adịla onye ọzọ mma. Onye ka Igbo na-asị,
Egbe belugo belu.
"Egbe belu ugo belu." That is this.
Ya
This
dịrị
is
gị mma, dịkwara m mma.
that's right.
It is Igbo. It is part of the Igbo philosophy.
That's right. Eme nwata ka emeli ibie. You see, maka onye nwe sisi kpọọ ya isi akpụrụ albat. So let's all be fair.
Yes.
Let's all be fair and equitable in the way we deal with our fellow citizens and with other people, because onwere onye onye ga-ewepụtali ya ji n'ọkụ.
Yes.
Because you're an immigrant, tomorrow, one of those immigrants, one of those dreamers, one of those Haitians or Hondurans may be the person that will discover something that will actually, maybe a medication, a tool, or something that will save somebody's life.
Use Steve Jobs of Apple.
Yes,
He was a Syrian immigrant.
yes.
So, this country's success has been built on the back of
The
immigrants.
refresh
Yes.
that the U.S. enjoys in technology and industry is because of the
Driven.
injection of people from outside who
Yes.
come in here and see it differently from a different perspective
And-
and expand it so that it
Absolutely.
helps everybody else.
You are hearing all these wonderful conversations on Straight Talk Radio, coming to you from WGHC 98.3 FM, your voice, your music, your station. Again, we are on Facebook Live on WGHC Facebook, and also go to our Facebook page, Straight Talk to You, and you can listen to us live. And you can find us on your radio dial 98.3 FM, or you can listen through the WGHC
app on
Apple or
TuneIn
on
Android.
On Android. So yesterday was Martin Luther King's Day.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
In many ways, he's become, as the years pass by, his iconic image, he's become an iconic image and a huge stature within the American social space. And we appreciate what he's done for America. Most people would try to frame him as a champion of civil rights for Africans, people of African descent. But really, I see him as a prophet to America that helped America to get better, to look at herself and to get stronger and to have a more perfect union.
Yes.
And so what are there lessons to be learned from his life and for his work? Again, Straight Talk Radio, the world as we see it.
Yes. I would like to look at this actually from an Igbo perspective.
Good.
Ndi Igbo.
That's right.
So let's take the first part, is that there is a very, very deep-seated anger against injustice among the Igbo.
Yes.
And if you look back through time,
Yes.
it manifests itself over and over again in different ways.
Yes.
Okay? Take the, let's start with one that everybody knows about. Things Fall Apart, Chinua Achebe.
Yes.
Look at Okonkwo's response to the white man
Yes.
and destroying what he saw as his ancestral values.
Yes.
And it was enough for him to drive him to act.
Yes.
In Nigeria, everybody, well, most people that grew up in Nigeria have heard about the Aba Women's Riot. Again,
So-called about women's
well,
rights.
so-called. Yes.
But it was really a revolt
It was a revolt against unjust taxation
Yes.
by the British.
by the colonial
Okay?
government.
Again,
Yes.
you look at Igbo landing.
Yes.
Slaves that were brought to America looked up to see a slave auction where people are put on blocks to be sold, turned round and walked back into the sea, preferring to die rather than be put to shame.
That's right.
And I think Martin Luther King is just a progression of that same Igbo deep-seated angst against major.
Major.
So that's how I would first like to look at it. The second thing is then you say, in modern times, let us remember that Martin Luther King was a pastor.
Yes.
He pastored a church.
Yes. He started his life's work as a church pastor.
Absolutely.
He was trained in theology.
In theology.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of oratory
Yes.
came from the pulpit.
Yes.
And his ability to encourage people from the pulpit.
Yes.
But when the time came, he stepped away from the ecumenical to pursue social justice.
Yes.
And I think it is also in that a lesson to us all. Oka awuhu agakwe ukwe Sunday. Reading so, and then we shout hallelujah and everybody go. Yeah, there you go.
Insurance company.
There you go. Because we all have a moral obligation
Yes.
to come out and stand against injustice. I
Yes.
think it behooves everybody who calls himself a true Christian. Christianity in recent times, especially, let me take it back to modern day Nigeria, but also for a lot of the Igbo and other Nigerian communities here in America. Everything we are waiting for divine deliverance. In Jesus' name. Well, perhaps if we would at least lift a finger and try, and then allow God to work that miracle through us. If Martin Luther King had sat in his church and prayed for deliverance, we might not be where we are today.
That's an interesting point. Because Ndi Igbo si na onye kwe,
Chi ekwe.
chi ekwe. Onye buole chi ụzọ, gbagbo onwe ya n'ọsọ.
That's right.
So we also understand the fact that you have to be in line with your God.
Yes.
So I think that Jesus is not sitting back and allowing injustice. He fought injustice.
All his life.
His ministry touched people in ways that he liberated the women. He liberated the
Gentile.
the Gentile.
Absolutely.
He gave us a place of honor, a place of respect. Then he redeemed man in its entirety by bringing us out of obscurity where we are being oppressed in a different kingdom of darkness and brought us into his own kingdom of light and of life. And so if you look at him, he was a social activist. That was why it was said of his followers that these people have come to us and they have turned the world upside down.
Yes.
But in our time, there's no sense of outrage.
We normalize the abnormal.
Even within the church.
Especially within the church, if I may say that.
That's right. There's no outrage.
Especially within
There's
the
no
church.
outrage. Men are still afraid to speak truth to power. That was the ministry of John the Baptist. He stood up and said to Herod, Philip, said, look, the
That's
woman
your
you
brother's
have
wife.
is your brother's wife. You can't do that. And even spoke to the soldiers, spoke to the religious organization. In fact, Jesus' worst criticisms and sharpest criticisms were directed at the Sadducees
power
and the
that
Pharisees. And so, what is it that Martin Luther King, I believe, taught us is what you just said. The fact that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.
Absolutely.
And of course, with his letter from Birmingham, he was able to articulate for the church the need for them to see what he's doing as part of the gospel. Because people were beginning to doubt whether it was his place to really lead such a movement. Okay, you want to say something about
Yes. So, I mean, as you were talking, a lot of things going through my head. But there is one part in Amos, I think it's Amos 3:8, where it says, what does your God want from you?
Yes.
Seek justice, seek the truth. And I know I'm messing it up. But what I'm saying is we are created for a community. And if the community is not right, we should never be right. Because if injustice is happening to any part of the community and we turn a blind eye, it gets to you eventually. But what Martin Luther King taught us, I think you summarized it beautifully. That's why my favorite is the I've been to the mountaintop speech, because there he actually is almost like a manifesto. He each time I listen to it, my heart gets renewed by looking at the story of the Good Samaritan in a different way. The summary part is he said that sometimes when we look at the story of the Good Samaritan, we think about the pastor and we think the people who passed by and went their way. And we're thinking, well, we have a lofty idea about them and we're thinking maybe they are going, to a church service and they need to be there. Or we make excuses for them that they're not supposed to, because of the Nazarite rule, they're not supposed to see dead people and therefore they're trying. But he said that what he thinks is the reason is that the people that pass by asked a question of themselves, which is, what will happen to me if I go to help that guy?
Yes.
And the Good Samaritan turned the question outside and said, what will happen to the man if I don't help him?
Absolutely.
And that's where we have to be with what's going on. That's what he taught us. Martin Luther King could have lived a wonderful, great life. He had a PhD. He was well educated. He had a church. He could have taken the 10% from the tithe that is coming and lived a great life. And given his oratory abilities, I'm pretty sure he could be a great speaker going from place to place, making good money.
Yes.
But he knew what his calling was, which is the calling on every soul that is listening, and me and you, which is we should turn the question upside down each time we get into a situation, which is, what will happen in this situation if I don't help?
Okay.
What is required of me?
Well, so since we are going along that line, let me throw in something else that we may think about. So if you look at the last speech,
Yes.
when he says, "Mine eyes have seen,"
Yes.
okay, he basically was predicting, almost like onye na-agba afa.
Yes.
I have seen the promised land, but I will not get there with you. To which I say, take a step back and think about this. A lot of pressure was on Martin Luther King to cease and desist. I can promise you that many, many times he had been offered a wonderful settlement
Yes.
to cease and desist,
Recorded.
but he chose to pursue a course of action for the benefit of, for the greater good of America. Because, like you pointed out at the beginning, this is not something of benefit to just black America. He brought grace to America, regardless of color, creed, or whatever you look at.
Yes.
How many of our people, especially Ndi Nigeria and Ndi natural politics here in America, how many of you can we count on to stand true?
When the temptation comes.
When Abuja with Ghana must go back comes,
Yes.
And
how
try to
many of
settle
you can resist and pursue the truth with dignity and stand firm on what you know is right?
Because you're right. He had every opportunity to tone down. At some point, he was ostracized. Then
FBI had records of him trying to plant stuff that he didn't even do. Edgar Hoover.
Edgar Hoover.
J. Edgar Hoover, yeah.
was busy, instead of protecting him from the hate that was around him, was busy trying to
trap him.
discredit him and bring him down to shame. Again, that speaks to when you stand for truth,
Stand for it.
you will forever be remembered. Like the Bible says that the house of the righteous will be in everlasting remembrance.
Yes.
The wicked will be easily forgotten. So today, Martin Luther King is looming large in the American psyche. There is no community, there is no city where he's not being celebrated. That tells me that if you stand up for truth and you're willing to die for what you believe in, that you will have achieved something for humanity. And so, but where is the outrage within Igbo land for so many of the things that are happening?
That's the point.
You see, I believe that part of is also goes back to theology, how we view life. Because I think the common thinking now that my breakthrough is coming
Yes.
has kept the middle class from trying to upset the apple cart. No, onye nọrọzi ọ na-asị na eve elu ya ka a ghara ịgbalụ mmiri nwoke agbalụkwa na mmiri a na ọ gava elu ya na ọ gava. So the hope of my breakthrough is on the way. Everybody will swallow injustice, swallow all the shenanigans and all the things that are going wrong, hoping that maybe I'm at the point where I could get to be part of this exclusive club. And once I get there, hopefully, what they convince themselves that they will bring about change. But really what he's talking about is, I'll be one of them. So I don't want to upset the system.
You're going too far thinking about people in Nigeria, right?
Yes.
Let's think, we are talking about what's happening at the Daily Plaza.
That's right.
So there are a lot of us that are actually comfortable in our own skin right now where we are. You have a great job.
Yes.
You have you don't want to be seen on TV with those riffraffs, people who don't have the important job that you have. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So you're going to sit cushy in your office or sit nicely at home. Let those guys who don't have to go to work tomorrow go to Daily Plaza and carry the placard. Your job is important to you, your reputation is important to you, or you're turning the question to, I don't want to be seen on TV so that people will think I'm one of those. Or I don't want people to start talking to me at work like I'm a black champion.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Or fanatic.
Angry black man.
angry black
There
man.
you
That
go.
is not
There
the
you
question.
go.
The question
There
is,
you go.
what will happen to those on the TPP if you don't put your voice in the?
That's right. Yeah, and just to go back to the scripture that you would, Micah 6:8.
Yes.
It says, he has shown you, O
Oh,
man,
man,
what is good.
Yes.
It says, and what does the Lord require of you but to do justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with
Before
your
your
God.
Lord. Yep.
This conversation I will also direct to the evangelical community here in America.
Absolutely.
Stop
Who-
trying to buy new private jets.
No.
Not even
Beyond
that.
even the acquisition of wealth.
Is their silence in the midst of the all the
Unparalleled
things
assault against decency.
by the president that they supported.
Normalizing bad behavior.
So it is extremely painful
That's right.
when you see men of God using scripture
to just
in a very twisted way
Yes.
to make a point.
No, one of them said that Donald Trump is a brother. He has a little Christ. After they met with him, but nobody can tell us today who is his pastor. No. Where he used to go to church, or where his children were baptized, where he actually established some kind of fellowship.
I'll go beyond the membership. I'll encourage those who are praying for him, including me, to continue to pray
Oh,
for
we
him.
have to pray for
He
our
needs all the
deliverance.
help.
Yes.
And I encourage getting near to him and trying to educate him when it's necessary. But what you're saying is right. If we, whenever he makes one of those utterances or makes what may be a mistake that he would apologize for, there is no need to try to normalize whatever the bad behavior is or excuse it, because what you are teaching the people who are looking is that when it's expedient, when it's helpful to me, when it lines up with my politics, I am going to let the bad thing, I'm going to color bad thing to be good. But there is no mixing of light and darkness. It's either light or dark.
No, but the president himself told you during the campaign that he doesn't need to ask for forgiveness because he doesn't do anything wrong. So that is the fundamental belief, held belief.
First
so,
John.
So as far as he's concerned, there's no room in his life for apology or to say, I may have been wrong. So no.
We'll
no.
keep praying. We'll keep praying.
Yeah. So you're listening to Straight Talk Radio, the world as we see it, and with me on the studio today is Mazi Ejike Obasi, Mazi Oke Okachukwu, and we are coming to you from WGHC 98.3 FM, your voice, your music, your station, our wonderful community radio here in Chicago. And we're asking everybody to support this radio by giving so that they will continue to serve the larger Chicagoland community, especially the immigrant community. And so as we round up your thoughts, what do you have to say to Ndi Igbo?
So we started off talking about immigration.
Yes.
So immigration is not just for the people who haven't gotten here first. For us who came by way of immigration or through somebody else, it is ours to continue to champion it for those that it benefits.
Yes.
Yes. Mbano,
That's right.
Belu, go belu. Then for in the continuing the story, right? It's a life of service wherever you are. So ask the question: how does every situation you come to, how do you affect it positively? Not how does it discomfort me?
Mm-hmm.
And then stand up for justice. Fight injustice wherever it is. That's what we learned from Martin Luther King. And that means speaking up when it's uncomfortable to do so, especially when it's uncomfortable to do so.
Mazi Obasi.
Well, I think today has been a very nice discussion. I think for me, take-home points are that a tree cannot make a forest.
Yes.
We must find a way to begin to organize, and my hope is that we begin to move away from Ndi Igbo especially, to move away from this traditional concept of continuously organizing based on purely obodisi, and begin to broaden our perspectives. If you want to organize as Ndi Igbo Taxi Drivers Union, if you want to organize as professionals, if you want to organize as an investment club, I mean, I really think we need to begin to bring ourselves into the modern century and begin to look for ways to make an impact in the society we live in.
Thank you so much. And so, again, as we bring this program to a close, we come to you every Tuesday from 9 to 10 p.m. on this station, WGHC 98.3 FM. And so, tune in again on Saturday to hear Straight Talk Radio from 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. And we will be looking at 48 years after the end of the Nigerian Biafra War. How far, so far. So, again, this is Mazi KK Odeluga,
Mazi Ejike Obase,
Mazi Oke Okachuku,
saying, Kachifodu, and let's stay focused. Onye ndị ilo gbalubulu na-eme gịnị ndị Igbo agwọnọkwanụ n'akịrịka. Daalụnụ.
Dalo.
Ndewo. Good night.
Edabo.
Hey, Igbo kwenu. Hey, Mwano. Hey, Sultano. Hey, Patano. Hey, Kwesun. Hey.
You're listening to WGHC 98.3 FM.
But we are nothing's friend from see the first time. After trust instant, why you get anything you like? Long as you are right, then me alright. Me know you man, that's why I'm alive.
Your voice, your music.
Whether me in a skirt or jeans or short shorts, head race when me walk past. Me feel the eyes, believe the eye, me love the lights.